Information is a source of learning, unless disorganized, William Pollard. It's good to have you join me here at News Stories Trending at this hour on the Midday International News Desk here on ECWA Television Africa. I am Lois Turaki here at the News Stories. In Japan, new Prime Minister called for election on October 31st. Japan's newly elected Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is set to dissolve parliament next week and call an election for October 31st, according to the reports. The report came shortly after legislators formally chose Kishida as Prime Minister on Monday. Kishida's plan, amid widespread expectations for a poll in November, appears to be aimed at exploiting a traditional honeymoon period accorded to new government and a sharp drop in the number of coronavirus infections. Outgoing Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga enjoyed support ratings of about 70% soon after taking office about a year ago, but was pummeled by criticism of his handling of the pandemic, leading him to make way for a new face to lead the ruling Liberal Democratic Party (LDP) through the election. Kishida, 64, a former foreign minister with an image as a low-key consensus builder, beat out three contenders last week to lead the party, ensuring he clinched the post of prime minister as the LDP has a majority in parliament. The report said Kishida will announce the election in his first news conference as prime minister later on Monday. The public broadcaster added that Kishida will dissolve parliament on October 14th. The ruling party's new Secretary General Akira Amari told reporters that while he had not heard anything from certain, he believed Kishida will move in that direction. As cyclone hits Oman, the UAE and Saudi Arabia are on alert. Authorities in the United Arab Emirates have said cautionary measures are being taken, and Saudi Arabia has called for caution in several regions after 4 people were killed as tropical cyclone Shaheen made landfall in neighboring Oman. Police in the United Arab Emirates UAE on Monday patrolling near beaches and valleys where torrential rains were expected to ensure the residents' safety. Government and private sector employees in Al Ain on the border with Oman were urged to work remotely on Monday, and authorities called on residents to avoid leaving home except for emergencies, the Abu Dhabi government media office said. Authorities are working proactively around the clock to evaluate residential units in expected affected areas and transport families to safe locations so it is safe to return, said. Saudi Arabia caution in several regions on Monday to Friday in expectation of high winds and possible flooding, the state news agency reported. Cyclone Shaheen slammed into Oman on Sunday with ferocious winds and heavy rain, flooding streets, prompting evacuations from coastal areas and suspending some flights to and from the capital, Muscat. Reports from Omani broadcasters showed vehicles submerged as people tried to make their way through muddy brown flood water. Up to 500 centimeters, that's 20 inches of rain was expected in some areas, raising the risk of flash floods. Cyclones steadily lose their power over land, and Shaheen was downgraded to a tropical storm after it cleared the ocean, the Meteorological Service said on Twitter. The National Emergency Committee said the power supply will be cut in Al Khroum, east of the capital, to avoid accidents. Aid agencies transferred more than 2,700 people to emergency shelters. Most of the oil-exporting countries 5 million people live in and around Muscat. Authorities said roads in the capital will be open only to vehicles on emergency and humanitarian work until the storm dies down. In Italy, 8 dead after plane crash in Milan building. A small private plane crashed into an empty building on the outskirts of Milan in northern Italy, killing all 8 people on board, according to police. The plane, which took off from Milan's Linate City Airport on Sunday, was headed for the island of Sardinia, according to officials, piloted by Romanian billionaire Dan Petrescu, according to the Italian media. The 68-year-old was one of Romania's richest men. He headed a major construction firm and owned a string of hypermarkets and malls. He also held German nationality, the Corriere della Sera reported. Report says his 65-year-old wife, who also had a French nationality, and their son, Dan Stefano, 30, were killed. Also on the plane with the family were 4 of their friends, 2 sisters and a couple with their 1-year-old child. The crash occurred just outside a metro station in the Milan suburb of San Donato. People in the area reported hearing a blast when the plane collided with the 2-story building, which was empty at the time as it was being renovated. Flames and smoke shot in the air and several vehicles parked along the street caught fire, witnesses said, but no other casualties were reported. Now in Singapore, Parliament debates on foreign interference law. Singapore's parliament is debating controversial legislation that the government says is necessary for foreign interference, but opposition parties, social media platforms and others worry is too broad in scope. The Foreign Interference Countermeasures Act (FICA) was first tabled last month and is likely to be passed since the ruling People's Action Party (PAP) has all but 10 of the 93 seats in parliament. Home Minister K. Shanmugam got proceedings underway on Monday with a speech to members explaining the government's position. The law will give authorities sweeping powers, including compelling internet, social media platforms and website operators to provide users information, block content and remove applications. The government will also be empowered to designate organizations or individuals, politically significant persons, if their work is perceived to be directed towards a political end in Singapore, without allowing them an opportunity to challenge the designation. The country, led by the PAP since independence in 1965, already has extensive laws controlling freedom of assembly, expression, and association, and introduced a sweeping fake news law in 2019. Freedom House ranked the country partly free in its freedom in the World 2021 report with a score of 48 out of 100 and noted action taken against online media, which offer a great diversity of views than the city-state's mainstream media. Spain promises help for lava cascades from La Palma volcano. Red-hot lava has exploded high into the air from La Palma's volcano as the eruption gathered force hours after Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said on Sunday night that Spain will help rebuild the island and added that it was safe for tourists to visit. Reports said the north side of the volcano has collapsed late on Sunday, causing a faster flow of lava. Reports also said the collapse had formed a new lava flow that was threatening several nearby towns. A clear increase in effusive activity has been observed in the last few minutes, the Volcanology Institute of the Canary Islands in Volcan said earlier on Twitter. Making this third visit to La Palma, part of the Canary Islands in the Atlantic Ocean since the eruption began on September 19th, Sanchez said earlier on Sunday that the government will approve 206 million euros, that's $239 million of aid funding this week. The Cumbre-Vieja volcano has destroyed more than 900 buildings. About 6,000 people have been evacuated from their homes on the island out of a population of about 83,000. The financial package is the second stage of a plan approved last week. The first stage saw the government announce aid of 10.5 million euros, that's 12.5 for the immediate assistance of those who had lost their homes. Sanchez also encouraged tourists who were considering visiting La Palma not to be put off. Tourism in the Canary Islands' main industry is key. After Pyongyang test, North and South Korea restored hotline. The government in Seoul said on Monday that North and South Korea have resolved their cross-border hotline, with officials exchanging their first phone call since August. The move comes just days after Pyongyang sparked international concern with a series of missile tests in the span of a few weeks, prompting an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council. Seoul's Unification Ministry confirmed that officials from the two Koreas exchanged their first phone call since August on Monday morning. Earlier on Monday, North Korean state media reported that the line will be restored by 9 a.m. And it said leader Kim Jong-un expressed the intention of restoring the cut-off north-south communication lines in an attempt to establish lasting peace on the Korean peninsula. In Washington, a U.S. State Department spokesperson said it strongly supports inter-Korean cooperation, calling the reconnected lines an important component in creating a more stable environment on the Korean peninsula. Pyongyang blew up the two countries' joint liaison office in the town of Kaesong and then unilaterally cut off all official military and political communication links because it said Seoul was not doing enough to stop activities, sending anti-Pyongyang leaflets across the border. The two sides said on July 27th this year that all lines will be restored, but 2 weeks later, Pyongyang again stopped answering calls. Last month, Pyongyang carried out a series of missile tests, including a hypersonic weapon and a cruise missile with nuclear capabilities. South Korea also tested a submarine-launched ballistic missile. Kim and Moon Jae-in, South Korea's president, held a series of summits in 2018 but failed to achieve any significant breakthrough. International talks aimed at dismantling Pyongyang's nuclear and ballistic missile programs collapsed the following year over Pyongyang's demands for sanctions relief. Unification Minister Lee In-young, who is in Berlin on a European visit, said, according to reports in the German capital on Sunday, that South Korea will push for high-level talks to take place with North Korea before the end of this year, according to reports. In Afghanistan, a number of civilians dead after a blast occurred in Kabul mosque, says Taliban spokesman. An explosion ripped through a crowd outside the entrance of a mosque, leaving a number of people dead, a senior spokesman said. The blast targeted the gates of the Ida Mosque in the Afghanistan capital, where a funeral service was being held for the mother of Taliban spokesman Zabihullah Mujahid, who tweeted that the blast had claimed the lives of civilians. It was not immediately clear how many people were killed or injured in the attack, but the explosion appeared to be targeting senior Taliban leadership. Emergency non-governmental organization, an Italian non-profit that runs a hospital in Kabul, said that it was treating 4 people wounded in the explosion. Reports also described a large detonation and emergency services rushing to the scene. No one has claimed responsibility for the bombing, and the Taliban have not yet announced officially who they blame for the attack. Later on Sunday night, Kabul was rocked by more explosions and sustained gunfire in what appeared to be a Taliban operation against an ISIS cell. Images from the scene posted by local media showed at least 2 sizable blasts outside an apartment block. Taliban spokesman Mujahid said the operation completely destroyed an ISIS cell, a little more than a month since insurgents seized control of Afghanistan, taking control of major cities and installing themselves in the presidential palace in Kabul. The Taliban's new interim government is facing a range of threats from internal enemies. A deadly suicide attack at Kabul's airport in August and a spate of bombings targeting members of the Taliban in the eastern Afghan city of Jalalabad, all claimed by the group of ISIS Khorasan, ISIS-K, an affiliate of the ISIS, have highlighted the threat that other violent militant groups pose to the country's stability and the Taliban's rule. Amidst dissenting voice, Ethiopia's Abiy Ahmed sworn in. In Africa, the carnage triggered by soldiers using tear gas and leaf rounds to control anti-government protesters was a major flashpoint in the years-long movement that swept Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, Ethiopia's first Oromo ruler, to power. But with Abiy now set to be sworn in for a new 5-year term, the enthusiasm surrounding his appointment has long faded for some Oromos. This weekend, they made their frustrations known during 2 days of Iricha festivities on Saturday in Addis Ababa and on Sunday in the town of Bishoftu, traditionally home to the largest Iricha gatherings. They complained about the same issues that drove them into the streets in 2016, killings of Oromo civilians, mass arrest of Oromo youths, and the incarceration of Oromo opposition politicians. Unfortunately, we are back to square zero, Ayaspe Tasfaye, a prominent Oromo activist and government critic, said according to reports. Sports, African stars keep excelling in several leagues across the continents. It was another weekend of fantastic football. The Galaxy is winless in 9 straight games, dating to a 1-0 victory at Minnesota United on August 14th. Mamadou Mbake opened the scoring in the 6th minute when he headed home a corner kick by Edward Etuesta. LAFC is still winless with 3 losses in its last 4 games. Sparta slipped from 14th to 16th place in the table, and PSV Eindhoven secured an important victory on Sunday as their 2-1 win at home to Sparta Rotterdam moved them up from the 5th to 2nd in the Eredivisie table. The match came to life late in the second half with 2 goals in quick succession from Ivorian international Ibrahim Sangare and Ryan Thomas. Leipzig missed a host of chances against promoted Bochum until American coach Jesse Marsch introduced his star substitutes in a 3-0 win on Saturday. Andre Silva scored the opener in the 69th minute, and Christopher Nkunku made sure by scoring 2 goals in the 73rd and 78th minutes against the dispirited visitors. Cameroonian-born Swiss Bril Mbolo's stunning bicycle kick goal just 5 minutes into the first half paved the way for Borussia Mönchengladbach's 3-1 win at 10-man Wolfsburg in Bundesliga on Saturday. Meanwhile, Qatar SS forward Yusuf Balali scored the second of his 2 goals against Al Gharafa in their Qatar Stars League meeting in Doha on Saturday in sublime fashion with an audacious long-range strike from just inside the opponent's half, which flew beyond goalkeeper Yusuf Hassan in stoppage time at the end of the match. Finally, ECWA Television's Hope for Nigeria 2021. The ECWA Television's Hope for Nigeria 2021 as Nigeria celebrated her 61st anniversary. The program started at 8 a.m. with a speech by the ECWA President, Reverend Dr. Stephen Panyababa, opening the lineup of shows, with Nora Pam from 9 a.m. to 8:12 a.m. to 8:30 premiered old and new songs by the Evangel Arts Records. The dailies, which was anchored by Joyce Yakwari and Solomon Sambo Sabe, started at 8:30 a.m. with an hour's review of the headlines of the day and speeches from presidents and governors. My Health and I, from 10 o'clock a.m. to 10:50 a.m., featured a special episode of the show with discussions by various medical personnel. The religious segment, anchored by the General Manager of ECWA Television Africa, Engineer Tony J. Nakali, started from 11 o'clock a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. with discussions on contribution to nation and the burden of insecurity with Stephen Panyababa, the ECWA President, Reverend Joel Billy, the EYN President, Very Reverend Dave Denji Danjuma, the ERCC President, Reverend Sunday Stephen Ajishe, ECWA Vice President, Reverend Yunus Asabu Madu Jr., ECWA General Secretary, Reverend Samuel Atu, ECWA Assistant General Secretary Acting, and Reverend Joseph Hayab, the CAN Chairman, Kaduna State. The ECWA headquarters updates by Tosin Owolabi and featuring Mrs. Hawa Kasim, Reverend Mark Phillips and Reverend Romanus from 1 o'clock p.m. to 1:30 p.m. They spoke on the progress of ECWA compared to that of the nation. From 1:30 to 2:30 p.m., Magdalene Azel, who had Barrister J.K. Chris and Barrister Dele Adebayo, discussed the general public's view on the state of the nation. Lois Raki on the Midday International News Desk with a feel on how Independence Day is celebrated from outside Nigeria from 2:30 to 3 o'clock p.m. The interview segment with Bok Yepian came from 3 o'clock to 3:30 p.m. with report gatherings of Nigeria State while we celebrate 61 years. The living room also articulated a 1st October special from 3:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. anchored by Professor Amaka Ocheka, and she had Professor Theresa Madu, Professor Godwin Imade, and Barrister Samuel Kwadbog. They talked about the benefits of freedom in Christ. From 4:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m., Engineer Tony J. Nakali again anchored a special edition on how far politics has moved us as a nation with Reverend Sabo Madu Jr., the ECWA General Secretary, Dr. Sebastian Habu, Senator Hezekiah Dimka, and Honorable Chris Hassan. The Lifeline by Barrister Dato and other barristers discuss constitutionality of power rotation in Nigeria and cause of secession from 5:30 to 6:45 p.m. and National Talk with Seller Elisha Dasham, a special edition with a politician, chief, and the public focus on getting it wrong from the polls. Remember that if you have missed this wonderful program, you can always go to our Facebook and our YouTube page at ECWA Television to watch it. That's all from me on the Midday International News Desk until I come your way tomorrow with more news stories. Do have a great day and a great week ahead.